Hello, everyone, and welcome to the fourth Community Insights Talk, an exclusive look into the world of interfaith, just for Faith Forum for London, strengthening faith institutions, staff, council, VIP guests, and I believe we are streaming on YouTube now as well, which is amazing. I'm your host, Jeeves Rohilla, and today we welcome a very, very, very special guest. My voice seems to be going slowly, so my apologies if it's slightly difficult to understand or hear me, but let's see how it goes. Before we begin, some technical points. We are trialing a new streaming sort of approach. This is the first time we're doing it, so we may encounter some technical difficulties. My apologies in advance if we do. Same as in previous weeks, we will be having a 20-minute Q&A following the 20-minute talk. However, we now ask that you type your questions in the chat section on YouTube, either during or after the talk, and we will then pose those questions to the speaker. So we still want plenty of questions, plenty of engagement. It will just be through the chat section of YouTube. We also have Toby, who is our intern, who's been doing so much amazing work around the technicalities of the platform. So he'll be in the background ensuring, fingers crossed, that we don't have any technical issues. Now, a background into Community Insights. The main aim of these talks is to allow you guys to engage with the most influential individuals within the interface. If you think that these Community Insight sessions have been organized so everyone can gain a fundamental, basic understanding of the 9 major faiths. Normally, within Community Insights talks, we go around the room, and we can do that on Zoom, to name the 9 major faiths, which Faith Forum for London does represent. We can't do that on this streaming platform. So instead, if you could put it in the chat section on YouTube, if you could put a major faith that Faith Forum for London represents, please do. So that's one aim. Another aim is to gain an insight into the work carried out by the individuals giving the talk and the organisation they represent, as well as the communities that they engage with and may very well be a part of. Right, without further ado, let me introduce the amazing speaker for today and my friend Muzahid Khan. Inspired by his mother and late father from an early age, Muzahid learned to understand that as human beings we have a special gift. That gift is to make the lives of fellow people better and serve goodness in all aspects of life. This belief was to become the title of his first book, The Gift of Giving, released in May 2021. Muzahid is fully committed to empowering people in communities so that they can become better versions of themselves, serve the community with positive impact. Muzahid is managing director of a consultancy specializing in supporting the small business community with coaching and marketing support. He is a regional consultant for strengthening faith institutions, specializing in supporting places of worship to be sustainable through organizational development. For outstanding contribution to the community, he has been recognized by the Queen Elizabeth II, Her Majesty, as a young achiever in 1998, the British Prime Minister for his outstanding contribution to the community, again in 2000. Muzahid loves cycling and often organises charity cycle rides in the United Kingdom and Bangladesh. Long introduction, but now, without any further ado, over to you, Muzahid.
Hi, everybody. Good afternoon, and thank you, Jeeves, for inviting me firstly, and also giving me such a long introduction. So it's an absolute pleasure and an honor to be here to share some insights about my journey. And the journey is quite colorful and enjoyable so far. Hence, when I sort of wrote the book, The Gift of Giving, I thought it was the right time to pen my thoughts so that, in particular, my children and younger members of my family could read about my journey through life and the various chapters that cover various aspects of my life. So, first of all, I just wanted to say that I was born in a small village in the northern part of Bangladesh, which is also an area called Sylhet. And Sylhet is famous for tea. There's more than 170,000 tea plantations there, and many of those tea plantations were originally run by companies from the British Empire, although there's only maybe a handful of British families still run remotely some of those tea gardens. So it's a very lush green area, and the vast majority of people from the Bangladeshi diaspora who live in Britain are actually from Sylhet, maybe 95%. And that's due to the fact that the community arrived here. The big bulk of the community came here to support the economy, in particular the cotton mills, which were in need of staff, employees as a result of the lack of numbers because of the World War II. So, and then other professions of people arrived here. My father came here also to work in the cotton mills, but then later on he sort of set up numerous projects through manpower services funding funding pots, which some of you may not remember at all. Even I don't remember that well. So my family are Bangladeshi origin, and they are also Muslim. So am I. And so growing up in Britain as a Bangladeshi Muslim Brit, we had to learn very quickly to ensure that we maintained our heritage, which is Bangladeshi, and also we learned about Islam, our religion, and also be British at the same time. Now, for a lot of people, that would pose a great amount of difficulty in making sure that all of those three things can be maintained equally, if not equitably, to go forward as an individual successfully in life. I know many young people growing up, when I was growing up, were having great amount of difficulty with identity issues. You know, are you a Bangladeshi? Are you Muslim? Are you English, British? So that caused quite a number of people to have that identity problem. I was very lucky in the sense that as an individual, I was very comfortable and confident in who I was as Muzahid Khan. And I went to mosque, I learned my Arabic, I learned the basic fundamentals and principles of Islam, and the 5 pillars that underpin my faith. I learned that. And over and beyond, I learned about giving and charitable endeavors within my religion, within my faith, as will be the case with all of the faiths. That is a central aspect of our lives, that we are here to support fellow humanity. So that upbringing to be a good Muslim, to understand the basic principles of Islam, and then to apply that to our everyday lives was fairly easy for me. As I switched in and out of, there were moments in my journey that would be throughout the year that would be very culturally driven, so very Bangladeshi in culture, because celebrating numerous cultural days and events, and then sort of switching out and doing lots of things that were driven by faith and Islam as a religion, and also being part of the wider community here, being British and being part of civil society and taking part in what goes on locally, but not compromising my culture or my religion. And so I felt that it made me a stronger person. And as a result of that, I was able to get involved in a lot of faith-related activity, in particular charitable activity. through my local mosque, providing support services for numerous members of the wider community, which led me to becoming a chair of the Oldham Interfaith Forum. Oldham is a place where I live and I grew up here. And as a chair of Oldham Interfaith Forum, it was very important for me to follow the principles of the organization of bringing different faiths together on an annual basis, and also throughout the year, as in my year of being the chair, and doing lots and lots of activities to bring about understanding between the faiths, working together with all the different faiths to ensure that our communities were more cohesive and tolerant of one another, sending out messages of peace, messages of solidarity when difficult moments arise in our town, and also showing standing shoulder to shoulder with all our colleagues from the different faiths, to show that together we're stronger together in faith, although we may practice differently, but we do believe that doing good through our faith is a key principle and a component that keeps us together. So as I was growing up, with that very strong cultural root, a very firm belief and practice of the fundamentals and principles of my faith, and also growing up in Britain as a Bangladeshi Muslim Brit, I was able to get involved in a whole range of community development and community engagement actions, which the whole purpose was to improve the lives of, at an early age, to improve the lives of young people. So there was a period in time when I was growing up, there was very little activities for young Bangladeshi Muslims in my town. And so I became part of a youth group, which would put on a whole range of community development activities to empower, to enable young people to take part in youth activities, which will help them to build their confidence, which would help them to become part and parcel of civic society, which will help them to understand their difficulties, their identity, make them a better person to be able to contribute back into society in a way that perhaps they may struggle if they don't have that formula, which was mentored by the older young people as such. So as a result of being involved in this youth movement or a youth group, we and I were able to develop numerous projects. So we used to run annual football tournaments, annual badminton tournaments. We used to run football clubs. We used to run lots of cultural days and festivals. We used to run classes to teach the youngsters their mother tongue, so that they could communicate better with two languages, English and Bengali. We also were involved in building a community center, which in the end became the OBA Millennium Center. So me and my friends in the youth group were very integral to a lot of the background work towards the fulfillment of this project. In addition to that, we supported lots of people with job search and skilling up and interview techniques and preparation of CVs. Again, with the whole purpose of giving something back to the young people at that time, almost 3 decades ago, to be able to reach their potential as much as possible as an external activity to their normal school, college activity. In my time as growing up, things weren't always rosy. We faced many difficulties. We faced economic difficulty because my father would work, would only earn a limited amount of money. So we really didn't have much finances to be extravagant In fact, we had to make do with the limited amount of earnings my father would have. We used to live in a very small 2-bedroom terraced house. There were 7 of us. I would spend 4 or 5 years of my life sleeping on the sofa, reading my books, studying for my exams, and of course, it was not pleasant. But again, with the confidence of my ability to be positive, it wouldn't be long before I finish my studies, get a job, and immediately ensure that I buy a house for the family jointly with my father at the time, because it was not easy to purchase a property on your own, and access to finance wasn't easy. We also had some other difficulties that, as somebody who is brown and different, even though we were part and parcel of society, with our own diverse, with our own diversity and diverse background and our contribution to our town, we do, as growing up, we did face quite a bit of racism. It would be, common for us to be chased on the way to school or on the way back from school. It was also common for our windows to be broken by racist people passing through our street. It was common for name calling to take place. But none of that deterred us. It made us stronger. It made us more resilient, and it actually made us realize, as human beings, what were the strengths that was inside us. So it made me feel more Bangladeshi. It made me feel more Muslim, and those two aspects made me even stronger. But also, it gave me a challenge to become more part of society that I was living in, and to do more and more and more within this wider society, so that people, the wider community, can see that even though I was different, my family was different, my community was different, that our contribution to this community would outweigh any kind of disparities that others would see of us, that we were not the other. We were part and parcel of this community in terms of our contribution, whether it be paying our taxes, whether it be doing good, whether it be, doing street cleanups, whether it be empowering young people, bringing communities together. And that actually has given me everything that I am today, in terms of my achievements. And I have got a long way to go yet, because I do not feel like I have fully given of my ability. So I'm constantly searching my soul, searching my mind and my heart to find more and more gifts that may be inside me that I can impart and give to the wider community, regardless of their background, so that it helps them to be better versions of themselves. It helps their community to become even better integrated into society and the world. So we are a very interconnected world, and therefore it is important that layers of people, whether it be the next generation or groups of people, can come together and contribute in a way that makes not only themselves better, their families and their community, but also is a contribution to the world, for a peaceful world, as much as we can as individuals. So I've done a lot of work at the grassroots, whether it be paid or unpaid. I also used to believe that, and I still do, that working 9 till 5 was, your paid job, and you did what you did for the community through your job, but also volunteering outside of that time. So I spent pretty much whole of my life volunteering, whether it be a school governor or part of a youth group, or currently I sit on the Maggie's Cancer Centre board. I also sit on the Old Career Service, which is currently known as Positive Steps. I also sit on the board of my local mosque. I also sit on the Health Charity Board, and also my father's legacy foundation, Amana. And in addition to that, I support pretty much all of the voluntary sector organizations in my local area, with whether it be giving them a bit of conversation, confidence, or pointing them in the direction of collaborative working, or co-creating projects together, or even when urgent situations arise, supporting them with awareness raising or fundraising to support those who are less fortunate than us, whether they are wherever they may be. And again, during the pandemic, I was on hand to provide advice pretty much every day to numerous groups and individuals, and also providing hot meals for the local hospital, and also handing out food packs. And not only that, at that period, many people needed reassurance about the pandemic and the way it was going. So it was important for me to be able to give people confidence with my interpretation of what was going on in the news. I guess I'm running out of time, so I'm going to just talk a little bit about my work with strengthening faith institutions. I'm a regional consultant, and what I do is I work closely with a lot of faith organizations or places of worship in order to support them with charity registration, safeguarding training, good governance, roles and responsibilities, policies and procedures, supporting them to become sustainable in the future through developing programs and projects that can be run from their organizations to reach out to women, young people, elderly people, and wider community. I believe that a faith institution in the heart of the community not only is a great service for its own congregation, but also it has the ability to support the wider community that is surrounding it. And that way it builds a stronger relationship in the heart of the community and shows the value and principles of the faith that they represent. And I believe that places of worship and faith institutions have a far stronger role to play in society. And I hope that our work through strengthening faith institutions continues to support that and create an even stronger faith-led community, one which is able to give much more as it develops further. I wrote the book The Gift of Giving, which I've got a copy here, during the lockdown. This book may have been in the making for maybe when I was a little bit older, but I thought while there was opportunity in this period, I should write down a lot of my experiences of my journey. And in the book, I talk about my early life in Bangladesh, growing up to the age of 7, and coming from a very rural farming background with very little economics in our family, and then arriving in the UK in the 80s and 90s. And I have an entire chapter on the gift of giving, and the notion of the gift of giving was instilled in me by my father, and I guess more my father and my mother as well. And my father devoted his entire life to improving people's lives, and thus one of the principles that I grew up with around him. And I started doing what he was doing, which was supporting people, whether it be filling in a form, interpreting, or being available to people to console them, give them confidence, or even mediate in family matters. And I've inherited his goal in life, although I may be not as successfully as he did, but I hope to maintain and keep some of that legacy alive. I also organize a lot of cycling tours, and I find that cycling tours help bring communities together, help brings different people together, and it also helps to support other communities when it's linked to some charitable cause or endeavor. I recognize that the village I came from it was a very poor village back in the days, and there was no health facility in the village. And if anybody was ill, they would have to travel 25 miles on a transport that's not suitable, and people would die en route. So I decided to gather some young people from my village who live in the UK, and we built a community village health center which provides free healthcare to the poor people, like a primary care facility, which serves about 400 people a month, and we provide all the funds for that between the young people here. And again, I used to be in the public sector as an individual, but I kind of decided that I would leave the public sector because I wanted to achieve more in life in terms of improving people's lives through my work, through my voluntary work, through my charity work. And I needed more time and space to be able to devote to what I wanted to do, which was to have a purpose-driven living. And I wanted to turn up, I want to turn up at a stage in life where I can actually say I've led a purpose-led life, as opposed to, okay, well, I wake up, I go to work, I come back, I earn, I maybe have a hobby, and that was it. I wanted much more purpose than just a normal purpose. I wanted to give back all of my spare time to supporting people who are less fortunate than I am, or our families are, and how we've worked hard to be where we are. I want to show that to other people, that they can do the same with a bit of support. All of my proceeds from this book actually will be given to the Maggie's Cancer Centre, because I obviously sit on the board, and I believe that many people who are touched by cancer can do with a facility like that. And it's important that I raise awareness of cancer amongst our community, particularly in the faith communities, to ensure that people understand and understand that cancer is real, B, that 1 in 2 people will be affected by cancer in their lifetime, and C, that there are services available to them, and that they need to avail those services as soon as possible whenever they can identify that there's something not right. Many people leave it too late, because often people feel that it's nothing and it'll go away. And when it's too late, it's difficult. So I'm very keen to promote, cancer awareness, as I am to promote awareness of other health related matters, which is why I sit on a board of Beacon Health Foundation, with the objective of tackling health inequalities in our communities. And one of the projects that we will be hoping to develop, and again, we will be talking to strengthening faith institutions to promote health champions amongst our faith communities, so that they can talk to and raise awareness within the congregation with medical experts on hand. Could be a very exciting project going forward. So my book also talks about positive energy in terms of how a lot of people I come across are kind of a lot of people I come across seem to be in a position where they feel like there's no opportunity in life, and it's kind of they feel like they're boxed in, and depression creeps in. So I talk about how we are on this planet and we believe in God, and that every individual has been given their own gift, and is finding that gift, whether you be in a poor environment or in a rich environment. We have a certain gift, and if we can identify that gift, then opportunities can also be visible to us. And if not visible, we will have to work hard to attain it. But everybody has their own gift. It's just finding that gift. So there's many other things I can talk about, but I don't know if 30 minutes was enough, Jeeves. Unless you've got questions.
And so many questions, so many questions. I nearly forgot to mute again. Gosh, back on Zoom. No, thank you so much for that talk, Mujahid. To be honest, we normally just let our speakers talk for about 20, 25 minutes, but I didn't want to stop you. I didn't want to stop you. It was such a fantastic talk. Just to encourage the audience who are listening and watching on YouTube, please do write some questions in the chat section so we can then ask them. Ask Mujahid, pose those questions to Mujahid. I have one, Mujahid, because everyone who approaches you, even myself when I engage with you, they talk about your positivity. So on that theme, I want to ask you a question around COVID. And around the amazing positive sort of response and impact that faith communities had in response to COVID and what they did. And you being a regional consultant, you were on the ground, as you mentioned, supporting vulnerable groups, but also working with places of worship to provide that sort of COVID relief support. How was that? Could you tell us some positive news stories that we can take from it?
Yeah, of course, at the beginning, naturally, everyone I spoke to were very, very anxious and very uncertain about, what is this virus? Why has the world suddenly gone into lockdown? What does this mean? It's like a massive dark cloud hanging over our community, our houses, our families, and people were, naturally anxious. But the vulnerable end of our communities, you can imagine how distressing it must have been for them. Already in a vulnerable position, whether they were people with depression, whether it was people with, low income families, single parent families, and so there were so many issues that kept coming up. People I spoke to all the time, they just wanted to know what was going on, how long this would last. Was this going to, kill off humanity? People just didn't know what had suddenly hit us. When you see a war in a country or some conflict, it's like it's over there, and it's like, okay, well, something's taking place. The world will come together and resolve it. But this was like the entire world was under attack of some sort, or a dark blanket was covering, and nobody knew how to respond to this. And people started seeing footage on TV, and that caused more anxiety and more, feelings of help unhelpfulness, and it's like, what do people do? But you know what? The interesting thing, after a few days, after a week or so, the faith communities, started, thinking about how they were going to support their congregation and others who were vulnerable. And many came out straight away. They wanted to, because people couldn't go out for shopping, like if they were elderly. So a lot of the Muslim communities that I worked with, they started getting in a van, picking up, food packs and delivering door to door. Many started asking people, if they needed any support or even just like a phone call, just to call and talk to them so that they can tell them that they're available for them. A lot of social media activities started taking place, even like on digital, like for example on Zoom. Lots of gatherings took place for prayer, and it was like every week there were gatherings of 100, 200, 300 people on Zoom doing prayer, like because they can't go to the mosque. So there was like a collective um, sort of words of wisdom and patience from numerous leading people, and then at the end they'll raise their hands and pray. So that gave people a feeling of like we're in it together, and even though we're stuck in our houses and not seeing anyone, at least we can see them on Zoom, and we can talk and we can pray and we can reassure one another that we're all in it together. And then lots of mosques and gurdwaras and churches, they started also doing the food banks for so people started doing what they could, and as a quick win, and those quick wins were essentially around food and phone support. And I was on the literally talking to at least 70 plus faith institutions are the lead people that are on my contact list, and trying to help them with interpreting government guidelines. And then later on, as you know, we were delivering COVID compliance sessions for reopening after the first lockdown, when the government was to allow places of worship to reopen. We did a lot of the risk assessments, and supported many organizations to facilitate their reopening.
Just you mentioned briefly in that answer, and also we spoke about it before we came on air, the relationship of technology, but particularly what I want to ask you, the relationship of technology and faith communities and faith as a whole. Where do you see that going forward? Because after COVID, a lot of, like you mentioned, sermons, a lot of prayer was done via Zoom, was done via Facebook Lives. How do you think that that relationship is going to look? What will it look like in the future?
I think it's a positive development. On one hand, I know it can be also seen as a generational thing, but for me, obviously, not seeing people face to face in a place of worship is kind of has been a bit of a worry for a lot of people, but now they are able to. But I think the positive that's come out of it is, A, you're able to reach more people around the world. B, you're able to reach younger parts of the community that maybe didn't necessarily attend your place of worship, or only attended whenever, like, say, for example, in the Muslim community, some people will go and pray only on a Friday in the mosque. Rest of the week they may be busy, at home, or at work, or in their leisure time. Some people will only go maybe during Eid, and some people might just pop in and out ad hoc whenever there's a prayer time and they're near a place of worship. They'll pop in. Some people might go when there is like a wedding kind of ceremony, not the actual party, but just a small ceremony. So there are many reasons why people would go, but I think the digital has connected people more, and there are more and more people joining to listen, digitally on the mosque radio, or on they do the live feeds. People are coming in through Facebook, YouTube, and you can actually connect with more people of your congregation, or of your mosque's affiliation, wherever they may be. And it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a catchment area of wherever you are. I know that many places connected with people around the world that they wouldn't have done, which is very interesting. So the reach has become better. The question then is, for me, is content creation. So if a place of worship can create content regularly, and if it can give relevance by having various age groups, gender groups, individuals to actually be part of that content creation. I know that not everybody will be uh, qualified to speak on scriptures, but not everybody needs to be qualified on scriptures, in the sense that the qualified people talk about the theology in its true sense, but you can have other people talk about topics like, why should the environment around the place of worship be litter free, for example, and where does it say in the scripture that it should be litter free? So you can talk about social issues, economic issues, and various other topics. You can talk about technology and faith, and you can have young people, women, and elders. You can have content that you can create using a generic topic, but you can bring in. So the other day when we were talking about climate change, all the faiths, I'm pretty sure, please do correct me if I'm wrong, will have some paragraphs in their scriptures that talk about looking after the environment. And it's how do we use those verses in theology to talk about climate change. And because the young people are much more proactive now after Greta, about climate issues, then yes, of course, we can bring in verses from scriptures, and I know there's many verses in the Quran about in the environment and the climate, and that as human beings, we're custodians to looking after the plants and the animals and the ecosystem. So there is no reason why we can't have that conversation, but obviously making that distinction where qualified imams and priests um, have they're the ones who can really interpret the scripture.
I think I 100% agree with you in regards to exciting content creation as well. I think it's got to be
Yeah.
exciting, especially if it's on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. It's got to be, you're constantly competing for people's attention, in which case it's got to be good quality content. And it's a great way to engage younger audiences, which I know a lot of places of worship sometimes say, how do we engage a younger audience? We're struggling to bring in the next generation of faith leaders. Well, go online, invest more resources into your sort of YouTube, into your Facebook, engage young people on the platforms which they're always on. Before we do finish up, I'll just go through the chat section. We've had some lovely comments from Rose, who said that was a really amazing talk. Thank you. And Nina said, such a great talk. Thank you. I admire your view of life. Rose actually has a question, which we'll finish up with. Any advice on how to become more active in my own local area?
Okay, so there's many ways of becoming active in your own local area. You start off with yourself. Is there something that you're really passionate about that you would like to see taking place in your area? And if you are interested in something really strongly passionate, do something about it yourself, and you'll see other people will begin to come and join you. Outside of that, when you start something, you'll find that there are groups out there who actually resonate with your action or your belief, and they will come and help you and support you. And outside of that, there are lots of groups in the voluntary sector, in the faith sector, who are actually doing great work in all different types of fields. And you can actually find them in your local voluntary council for voluntary services. And you can give them a call, and you can ask anybody about what's going on in my area on a certain topic, and you might be able to get involved with them to ensure that you're part of some civic society responsibility that that's going on in your area. I always find that there's so much that goes on, and it's I'm limited to time to be able to give to all of them, but I try my best to be part of as many things as possible, because I strongly believe that all of those small groups that are doing small acts of kindness or big acts of kindness, they exist out there, and they love to hear from people who want to be part of something or want to be supportive of something, or even create something, and then you'll find that they will come around you.
Definitely. I think I always think when anyone asks me this question, a great place to start is your local food bank. I say, right, well, why don't you start volunteering at your local food bank? And a lot of times food banks are actually run by places of worship as well, having the faith tie. Our speaker last week spoke about Trussell Trust, which I think was started off by churches, but they're a fantastic organisation now, that umbrella organisation that support lots of food banks up and down the country. Thank you so much, Muzahid. Thank you so much for coming to talk to us today for our fourth instalment of the Community Insights series. It's not too bad on this platform, no technical issues, so
Yeah.
It's been good. But yeah, just to say again, thank you so much. Thank you for our audience for being patient with us. I know it was a change not being on Zoom, but I do think this could be the future, using these other streaming platforms. Next week, we're hoping to get a guest from the Baha'i faith, so make sure you tune in for that. It will be 3 o'clock again next Friday. So please try your best to attend. Right, that's everything from us. See you later.